surfing's romantic, right? I don't need to go down that road, but like I feel like it's a big love story, really, like surfing and just falling in love with that and what it brings you, what it gives you, that peace, that separation from land, and like that feeling when you do a good turn or get a good wave, and then like I don't know, it's all so intertwined for me. Like it is like it's the biggest romance of my life, like just this whole surf story, and there's ups and downs and heartbreak and all that in there. Yeah, but it's still the one thing I love the most in the world is surfing, and obviously what it's given me, and you know, it brought me everything I have.
That's Lisa Andersen. I'm Jamie Brisick. This is Soundings, brought to you by the Surfer's Journal. The Surfer's Journal is a member-supported publication made possible by sponsorship from Birdwell, FCS, Patagonia, Rainbow, Vans, Vissla, and Yeti. More like a book than a magazine, TSJ brings you 128 pages of independent storytelling every 8 weeks, covering the people, culture, travel, and art of surfing. To learn more or to subscribe, please visit surfersjournal.com. Lisa started surfing at age 13 in Ormond Beach, Florida. Her parents were unsupportive. 2 years later, her father destroyed her surfboard while Lisa watched. At age 16, she ran away to Huntington Beach, leaving a note for her parents saying that she was going to California to become the women's world surfing champion. And she did exactly that, winning 4 consecutive world titles from 1994 to 1997. In that time, she raised the bar on women's surfing in a giant way. From a 1996 issue of Outside magazine, quote, "She's the first woman to cross over into surfing celebrityhood and achieve a dominance that made the pig dudes shut up and take notice." Lisa and I joined the ASP World Tour right around the same time, in the late 80s. She was insanely talented and obviously destined for greatness, but she lacked confidence. For the first few years, she performed way beneath her potential. I kind of liked this about her. She was immensely human and fallible and vulnerable. In 1993, she got married and had her daughter, Erica. Motherhood seemed to put her on track, and from there, she went on a world title spree. Lisa is a 6-time winner of the Surfer Magazine Readers' Poll Award. In 1998, she was voted Female Athlete of the Year by Condé Nast Sports for Women magazine. In 1999, she was the only female surfer, along with Kathy Gidget-Koner, to be listed in Surfer's 25 Most Influential Surfers of the Century article. In 2000, she was ranked number 76 in Sport Illustrated for Women's Greatest Sportswoman of the Century. At the height of her career, she was the face of Roxy, and she continues to be an important ambassador for the brand. Lisa and I spoke at the hotel where she was staying in Orange County. What's interesting to you that like you've done so much press and you've done a lot of these things, like what's not talked about that you would love to talk about?
Is that my first question?
Sure. Yeah.
No one's ever really asked me that.
Yeah,
it's always been what they want to hear.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think well, I can't really get too personal about what I deal with on a day-to-day because that's definitely stuff I don't want to share.
Yeah.
But I think there's just a lot more of that going on behind the scenes that people realize. I think that's just one thing to be said.
Yeah.
You know, I think that everyone looks good on the outside. But then there's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, I know I've always had so much stuff going on in my life because I've had like this crazy career or this journey that I've been on, but like so much has been happening. I think just when you think you've reached a certain age and you're like, okay, everything should be chilling out and slowing down and I should just know where I want to be and what I want. Like, I think I'm going through another like period of like, what do I want? Like, where am I going? Like, what is next? Like, you know what I mean?
For sure.
And it's pretty interesting because it's just like, I have no idea. Like, I'm just sort of, it's almost like you're waiting for something to just appear. Yeah. But it doesn't work that way. You kind of have to do a little bit of deep diving into your soul, I guess.
For sure. No, I mean, I think I've observed this and I felt it on a smaller level myself. And I often thought to myself, the more you achieve as a surfer, the more you're almost cursed later on with. It's like we are all like a version of the high school quarterback who's the star and who like you check in with them 5 years later and they're like a mess. I mean, I think there's a level
He's
of
like parking cars at some hotel somewhere.
We see that, right? And there's like a level of it's like this early phase where you hit extreme highs that you can be cursed by later on, you know?
I guess, I mean, an example of that is the fact that the surf industry is not very supportive or loyal in ways of like, they don't really like, I mean, I think there was just something about Mike and Nickens starting a brand or a company where it supports all those industry greats that like time has passed them by because they're not marketable,
Yeah.
and quote unquote not marketable because of their age or their demographic. So like I feel like that's where surfing kind of, let me down, was
Yeah.
like I evolved naturally, but the surf industry kind of like checked out and said, we don't know how to like reinvent, Lisa. Like even my own brand that I've been with for so long, like there was definitely some dark times where I was like, okay, what do we do? Like
Yeah.
I felt so let down because there was like so much missed opportunity of like growth, and that I didn't know how to step up for myself and say, this is what I would love to do, because I always thought it was like, oh, that is just not supported. Like surfing's evolved so much now. When you look back, like we were like the test pilots for this sport.
Yeah.
And now it's like an Olympic sport.
Yeah.
Which is kind of mind blowing. Like,
Yes.
I knew deep down inside that I was going to get there, but it was just one of those things where like, you can never be like, ugh, I don't know. Like it's not like I don't take it personal. Like it's not a sad, bad thing, like a negative thing on me, but I feel like, gosh, like they have it good now.
Yeah,
They just
for
have
sure.
everything is so good. And I mean, I want to mean good in that way. I just mean like it's a dialed in sport and there's a lot more going on.
Yeah.
I think that I went through just this like bumpy road with surfing.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting one because I think about it today, and there's a sort of financial security. There's like if you took all the world champions, maybe I'm speaking more for the men than the women because I know the women have not gotten paid in the same way. But thinking about like for the last 20 years, they've all probably earned enough money to like own more than one home and be able to retire, and they would be faced with their own like, what do I do next with my life? But at least they'd be financially
Right.
secure, whereas like there's a generation where it's like not only do you have the thing of like you did great and you were a world champion or whatever, but you've also got to like figure out how to kind of like keep paying the mortgage.
Yes, it's a survival, and that's like honestly, I feel like I've just done that my whole life. Survive, like get,
Yeah.
Paycheck to paycheck type of living is how I've always known it to be.
Yes.
And I'm not like, a multitask, multi-talented person where I have my hands in all these cookie jars, like, because maybe, I don't know, lack of inspiration or just like not having a clear vision of what I want to do next. It's really a stumper. Like, I feel like I'm going through that right now. It's like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of opportunity right now. Thankfully, right now, there's a ton of stuff happening. And once again, going through this transition with a brand that's being bought. So there'll be a lot of like change happening. So it's not the first time I've been through that with a brand, but like just that unknown. There's that fear of the unknown. Like what happens if the rug just comes out from underneath me?
Right.
What do I do?
Right.
And then sometimes I blame myself. Oh, well, you should have done this or done that. But like if you think about it, it's not like the shoulda, coulda, woulda concept, but you just didn't have the money.
Yeah.
Pure and simple. Like surfing just wasn't in that place for me, which is. It's a kind of a scary place to be.
Yep. When you reflect on your career, what are you most proud of, or what do you think is like the thing that you hold closest to your heart?
I mean, I guess first and foremost, it's just overcoming all those obstacles.
Yep.
And not that they were actually, those were obstacles that were, those were things that I put myself into. And it wasn't like I don't blame anyone for the obstacles. Those were mine that I made for myself. And but they were meant to happen. I mean, each one of those events was a learning experience, and every single one of them taught me how to, deal with that and prosper and move on and continue the journey. Having kids was huge. I've always taken care of so many people in my life, like up into my mom. Recently too, just got her into a home finally. For so many years I felt like I wasn't able to do that for her, but I finally did that. Like this was like a week ago, and it's like the best release of like, feeling like, God, I finally got her secure. She's good, and I can travel and not worry about it anymore. But I've had that with me forever. And even though the kids have moved out, I've still had my mom to take care of.
Yeah.
And it's such a good feeling of just being able to be able to know that you could do that for someone, and then you have this like, it's like a whole nother ball game for me. I feel like I'm finally free a little bit, like not in a selfish way, but like to be able to do that for your parent is huge. And so that just recently happened for me. But I've always taken care of people my whole life, and constantly still feel like I am, and not letting anyone else like come in and take care of me, sort of thing. Like I'm like, no, I got it, you know.
Yep.
I'm sort of thinking, you know, maybe it's time to just kind of let that wall down a little bit.
Yeah.
And then sort of just let that kind of happen. But that's a lot of stuff that I deal with that not really many people know about.
Right. Do you think though, in thinking back, do you think that was like a something that drove you as well? Like gave you this like extra drive that someone who had like a silver spoon in their mouth would not?
No, I mean, I just had a lot of self-worth. I mean, I knew what my values were
Yeah.
at an early age, because I had to grow up so early, you know, like I probably didn't understand what those meant until later on in life, when you have kids and you realize you don't have time to be a little asshole. You have to have responsibilities, and you have a child to take care of. I think that was a big reason why I started to become successful in surfing, is because I had my mind in my daily routine was like very strict. Like I had a routine. I couldn't veer off of that.
Yeah. No, it's so interesting because I think I knew you early on in your career, your first years on the tour. I think we were on the tour at the same time. And you were always, I think everyone looked at you as like, she's so insanely gifted as a surfer, but it's not matched. Her contest results are not, they're like, there's a disparity there. And then you got pregnant and had Erica. And then you, if I understand correctly, you won a world title right away, right?
Yeah. Yeah. After she was born. Right away. And then, I mean, that whole gap of like, you know, I remember those days of like having to, I had some pressure in the media of like, oh, you know, here's the next best thing or greatest thing coming and whatever in surfing. And then I'm like, well, I suck at competing so badly.
Yeah.
And it probably has a lot to do with learning to surf so quickly. Like I learned in a year and started competing, and not only did 1 year of amateur competition and then turned pro.
Yep.
So
but
I
you
did
won
not
everything as an amateur, correct?
Yeah. And then I just didn't, once I got into the pro ranks, I dealt with, you know, confrontation with you know, older women, older girls, like that whole tribe that I was kind of trying to break into, and being so young and not really know how to carry myself professionally. Like, yeah, I got it just intimidated me so much. And then I really didn't know how to compete. I didn't know how to actually surf a heat. I was just learning as I went along. I felt like I was doing that all those years before I won an event. It was like weird because methodically I would get to one round for an entire straight month, and then I'd get to another round, and I'd do that for a straight month. Like it took me so long to figure out how to get from round to round to round, like to actually beat someone. And then they had my number because I would always get them in a heat every single contest. And then I was like already lost because I was already in my head. So there's a lot of mind games for me. Like, and then that's why I think that having Erica I had nothing else on my mind but her. You know what I mean? So there wasn't enough room in there for everybody to jump in to mess me up. Like it was just Erica in my mind. Like, okay, I got to feed her. I got to win this heat. You know, I want this, you know.
God, that's so incredible. It's so different because I think a lot of men would have there's like maybe an inherent selfishness just in the way the world works of like, I'm the center of all this. And a man would think like, oh, as soon as I have children, that might actually take away from my competitive drive or focus or whatever. And watching you, it was almost like it did the opposite thing. It just...
Well, I think if you look at a lot of female athletes like Serena and like a lot of the female athletes that have had children and then all of a sudden have this crazy like energy, like this superpower of like wanting to come back and do it again. Like, and then they come back and dominate because there's just this amazing euphoric just strength and powerfulness that comes from you from within after you have children. It's like, I don't know if it's hormones or a combination of everything. I mean, it's pretty incredible. It's like you feel just like invincible. Like I've given birth. Like I can do anything, right?
Yeah. So you grew up in Florida, Ormond Beach. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Ormond, yeah.
Ormond Beach. Ormond. And you weren't surfing for a long time, and then you ran away to Huntington Beach, age 16.
Pretty much, yeah.
I met you probably not long after that, but what I always remember, because I thought it was so beautiful, is there was a book that Nick Carroll, a biography of you that Nick Carroll had written, and he wrote something about, you know, what I just said. Lisa ran away from Ormond Beach to Huntington Beach. She was a runaway, and then he was reflecting on the entire pro tour, and he goes, "We were all runaways." And I remember thinking, and this, I read, that book came out like long after my pro tour days. And I remember thinking, that's kind of true. Like everyone was kind of on the run from something. Like some were more literal in the sense of yours was I ran away from home, literally. But like other people were just, there was something in their lives that they were trying to like work through, and the tour was where it happened.
Yeah, I feel like we were all like vagabonds. Like in a sense, it's the number one reason why my parents didn't want me to surf, because we were beach bums and just like laid around and didn't do anything all day and didn't work and just surfed, and a lot of them, smoked weed, and that was the characteristics of surfers. Like we didn't really have a structured any kind of like it was just a big party scene. Honestly, I always kind of compared it to like your college days, which I never had, and I always thought that this is like what it's like living in a dorm with a bunch of crazy people, like surfing around the world and just getting into shenanigans. Like, and there was no like real sport there. It was just like an art. And there was this argument of, is it a sport or is it an art form? Like, and there's just like, I just remember like it was very wild.
Yes.
Right? And we were all definitely like just bumping into each other as we traveled around. And, it's pretty interesting.
No, that time was so fascinating, because I think about it now, and it's almost like the devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other, where there was one side there was the new movement of being more athletic. And I think it's interesting because a lot of the people that were sort of at the front of that, we would later learn that there was something happening on the side too. Like they were training really hard, but they were also doing cocaine all night long.
Yeah.
But there was definitely, I felt like torn between the surfer spirit of being like, the forefathers, the people that we looked up to, were all like wild and crazy, and that's what you did. And so as soon as you went to Australia, it was like, yes, of course you're going to go to the pub and drink all night or whatever. But then there was also this thing of new athleticism. And you were kind of, I think, in many ways, like your world. So you won world titles from 94 to 97. That was like a period where it was really getting more and more serious. It feels like it was shedding a little bit of the wildness.
I mean, surfing had to go through its transformation to get where it is now. I mean, it's such a young sport still.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look back at the history, and then like, especially now when you try to tell kids these days who someone is, they're like, never heard of them. Because they're not really educated on the history, which is kind of sad. But I think that they will eventually, but I think right now it's just, I mean, surfers are selfish people. We want to get the best wave out there every day, right?
Yeah.
And so, but we don't want to really give it to anybody else either. So it's like this thing where I feel like this sport is so young, and there's just not enough really not enough education about our founders and in our generations before us. I think for me, it's become an important thing that I want to spotlight every time I'm doing events, is like, I want to pay homage to people before me. I think when I was younger, I didn't give a shit because I was just a brat. But like, I see where it's so important now.
Yeah.
Because I see how people act and how they treat others. It's like you definitely want to instill that in these younger kids, like to have appreciation and to respect. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know that a lot of surfers do, because we cherish our icons and our we have people we look up to, our heroes and things like that. But I think that overall the sport's so disconnected with that. Like when you look at other sports now that are in the Olympics, they really have a Hall of Fame. Yeah. Like we have a couple street walks, but they're in actual cahoots and competitive with each other that it's not really a real thing.
I know.
And so that bothers me, because it's just maybe I'll get yelled at for this, but this comes across as just a marketing scheme.
Yes.
And I want to see it more respected at some point, like someone to really give it the accolades it deserves, especially the people that have been left in the dark that were real iconic and did a lot for the sport that people don't really, celebrate anymore.
Yeah, for sure. So the period that you came of age, who were you looking up to at that time? Like, who were the guiding lights for you? Like, this is how you do it. Yeah,
I mean, obviously, Tom Curran was, first and foremost, like, to me, was the god. Like, it's kind of hard to explain, because when you're learning to surf, you don't really know who you are as far as, like, how people see you as far as style and all that stuff. Like, it never really got into something I focused on too much. I just would go out and surf. Yep. And I would just try to do what he did or she did, or, try to approach a wave like that person, until I realized, okay, well, that's what it's called when you have someone that you admire, that you want to emulate, that you want to like, that would finally hit me like, I want to surf like him. Yes. You know what I mean? And so I was a little obsessed on I know a lot of us were, because he just epitomized this like beauty. And like a certain dance with the waves, and that's what I wanted to do. And he was definitely one of my heroes. And then later on, I obviously had a lot of different heroes that I looked up to for different ways, whether it was just the writing or, I'm talking about Dave and just certain people that came into my life that were there for a reason that, put me on a certain path.
Yep.
So there's just all these people that like I looked up to, and I still do, because I wouldn't be here without them pretty much.
Yeah. Dave Parmenter.
Yes.
Yeah. If you think about realizing your dreams, winning 4 consecutive world titles, how do you feel? How did it change you as a person, do you think?
Oh man. I don't know. I don't really remember. The only change I was going through was, there's several things, I guess. Motherhood was helping me get through those times, and how to carry and act as an athlete or a surfer during those times. And I think that also that I was with a brand that was evolving too. So we kind of carried each other through this like period of like, wow, this is like a bit of a movement. There's this product that we're launching at the same time, and it just like created this huge change in women surfing. Like all of a sudden there was this acceptance, there was this like respect, and like all of a sudden you had like fans or support, really, like and it carried over to other brands, and then they started supporting athletes, and it was a huge movement at the time, I think. And being a part of that was just such a very special time for me, for sure. And being able to win consecutive world titles was, I guess I contribute that to just being so focused on, that was my routine. Having a routine and structure and stability is so important to me even today. But like then I think that it was something I was discovering for the first time.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I think that that pursuit of athletic excellence and having goals and having an event and training for the event and doing all the things. There's like the physical training, but there's so much mental stuff of visualizing, what have you. It really, it is. It's interesting. I think about this now. It's like, that's just like a recipe to survive in the world, like there's so much about it that I feel learning that stuff as a young person applies to adult life.
Sure. It keeps me up at night.
Yeah.
I'm not lying.
Yeah.
It's a continuous like process of like, once you tap into the fact that you understand why your brain's doing what it's doing, then it takes you down so many rabbit holes. I think for me, I just struggle with where I'm going. Like I said earlier, that it's like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
Been there, done that. My kids are on their own. Like it's, it's a whole nother chapter in life. Like, so there's always that like, okay, what can I do? Like, there's, you try to have a certain mindset. I don't say that everything's perfect. I struggle a lot, but like I have help with people that support me all the time. I have great people in my life right now that give me that support. So, but yeah, it's interesting. Like, I feel like, what a wild ride since I first met you to now. Like, there's been so much that's changed. A lot has happened, and I really didn't. And the crazy thing is, only a small period of that was on tour for me. Like, I've spent more life away from tour now than I was, when I was on the tour. So everything else in my life has kind of happened after the world titles.
Yep. Yeah. When you look at women's pro surfing or women's surfing in general today, does it exceed expectations? What do you think of it?
I think that it's an amazing place right now, obviously, with what's going on and the equal prize money, the fact that once you make the tour, you can survive on the tour with just even losing last place, which is kind of crazy. I'm very, very happy for all those athletes. It's impressive to even watch the level of surfing.
Yeah.
Like I knew that it was only going to get better and harder to compete, but I never, I didn't think that, you would see this next generation of the younger little ones that are doing crazy things in wave pools and stuff like that. I didn't see coming because I didn't even know we'd have wave pools then, but it's incredible seeing how far it can go. It's always like, okay, if it's gotten here, where's it going now? It's kind of crazy to even to believe that, or does it take a step back and get back to more traditional, like, because it's so trickery and all that, that innovative stuff. That's not for everyone, but like I feel like there's still be a fine balance eventually of where everyone will be able to do that at some point, but it'll be hopefully a nice calming mixture to watch of like pure traditional surfing and a little bit of fun on the side. But like that's kind of how I see it. See like surfing can it's remember when like everyone started doing air all the time?
Yeah.
And that's all you saw, and it was
Yes.
just like the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
Like, and then until the surfers started to bring all the other things into their repertoire, and then
Yeah.
really and then it really kind of took off because then
Yes.
you could really see, wow, this is beautiful and
Yep.
fun to watch and exciting. Whereas before it was just getting so played out, like
Yeah,
that,
it was like trickery. Yeah.
like especially like in Huntington where it's like close out and you can only do one turn.
Yes, for sure. No, I remember that kind of in the momentum generation. There was Taylor Knox who had the big rail game, and it was among a lot of like tail flying stuff. Now you see John do it. You see
Yeah.
Dane Reynolds do it.
But you see these huge arcing turns that are like, that to me is impressive because you're always thinking, well, how can you advance a cutback and make it even more insane? Like
Yes,
then
for
you look
sure.
at John and you go, okay, that's on another level.
Yes, yeah. It's
You know
kind of
what I
under
mean?
the lip, and it's like beyond. It's like it's defying gravity.
Yeah.
Those big
It's
cars.
almost such an awkward body language, but
Yeah.
at the same time, it's so pleasing to the eye.
Sure,
you know?
sure. No, I know there's something about those traditional lines that are on the wave face and not in the air that are really beautiful.
Yeah.
I knew you. I think we were all new to the world, and then over several decades now, we would see each other in Hawaii. I'd see you in Australia. I can remember, probably having dinner with you at Marichu's house in the southwest of France with a group of people from Quicksilver and Roxy. Like there was this whole kind of odyssey that came out of. Like competitive surfing was the vehicle, and that was the thing that sort of sent us out. But then there was so much that came with it that that is so so it just like fills, it enlarges, it gets
Yeah.
bigger.
Well, surfing's romantic, right? I don't need to go down that road, but like I feel like it's a big love story, really. Like surfing and just falling in love with that and what it brings you, what it gives you, that peace, that separation from land, and like that feeling when you do a good turn or get a good wave, and then like I don't know, it's all so intertwined for me. Like
Yeah.
it is like it's the biggest romance of my life. Like
Yep.
just this whole surf story, and there's ups and downs and heartbreak and all that in there.
Yeah.
But it's still the one thing I love the most in the world is surfing, and obviously what it's given me, and it brought me everything I have.
Yeah.
So, and right now I'm in a love-hate relationship with surfing because it's like killing my back. But that's another story. But yeah, it's interesting because like I feel like then we were just like one big family traveling around, and we all had to learn from each other. And for me, like trying to break into that whole scene as this kid that came out of nowhere, no one knew who I was, where I came from, and trying to fit into a clique. Where am I fitting in? Is it going to be the girls or the guys or whatever? Like, how do I get respect? Like, do I take shit? I mean, I took heat. I took shit. I would take insults, made fun of, poked fun at. And like, because I grew up with brothers, I was already tough skinned anyway. And I just basically realized, well, the more shit I can take and laugh with it, the more torment I can take and laugh with it, the more respect I'm getting.
Yep.
So I started to realize that was where I could find that little niche to kind of be accepted or respected, was to just take shit.
Yep.
And be tough. Like,
Yep.
because the guys then, they didn't, they wanted you to be tough. They didn't, want you to be, weak at all or show any weakness. And I didn't want to show weakness.
Right.
I wanted to surf like them, and then I wanted them to know that I could take shit.
Yep.
So I could get respect. Because that's
Yep.
all I really cared about.
Sure.
Until I realized, oh, wait, I got to win. I got to start learning to compete. But I was so preoccupied with getting respect.
Yep.
Because women's surfing was not respected.
Yeah.
You saw that movie, Girls Can't Surf,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is,
for sure.
in my opinion, one of the best things I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was great.
And it really, really hit home on all the stuff,
Yep.
and
No, it was. I know it was so interesting because that was the generation that we came up in, and I watched. I think I might have been on tour maybe a little bit before you, and I saw the worst of it, and then I watched it change, and then I became a journalist, and I was sort of documenting, and I was observing and writing about it. But no, that movie really depicts how horrible it was. Did you like come across horrible sexism and just beast?
I mean, I've heard things I probably would never repeat ever, but I guess it was just harsh.
Yeah.
I feel like there was just no respect for women in general anywhere in the world
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was, I mean, when you're that young, you think it's normal.
Yeah.
So you don't, now looking back, you're like, oh my gosh, people have changed, like, because
Yeah.
it's a different world we live in now.
Yes.
But then it was just, you just thought it was normal, and you're like, okay, well, I guess I'll just take that one on the back, and then they'll probably give me a wave if I like take shit some more. And I just needed to figure life out. That was my way of figuring it out, was just being able to take shit
Yep.
and be tough.
Yep.
I know you were in Europe that one year. I surfed in the men's heats, right?
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
That I talked about not long ago because it was really funny, because it created some fights on the beach. But I mean, that was
Literal
something that I
fights?
did.
Like
Yeah.
fist fights?
Yeah.
No
And that was
kidding.
something I did because, I mean, Derek Hine at the time was like, you need to surf in the men's heats because then it's going to kind of help you, because I was so bad at competing. I'd fall apart in a girl's heat because I'd look at the girl and go, oh my God, she's going to beat me. But then if I surfed in guys' heats, it kind of built this I had nothing to lose,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And the pressure was on them, not on me, because they didn't want to lose to a girl. So it switched this entire thought process. And so when I would have this almost like a great warm up in that way. And then I go and surf in the women's contest and actually win. I think I won the events that I surfed in men's trials at, because that just instilled this confidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also then I started to get more attention from the guys by doing that, because then it was really, I was kind of putting pressure on them, and because if they were going to get me in a heat, it was just this weird thing happening, right?
Yeah.
There's a building of a relationship with them, of having them not only respect me, but really respect me, because I had the balls to go and surf in a men's heat.
Yep.
So there was those stories like that, and then there was a ton of things really. I think that, I have so many fun memories of free surfing with Rob and that whole crew, Rob, Ross, Shano, Conan, Kelly, everybody then surfing down the beach with them. And then I would wait for them and I'd see them go grab their board and go free surf. And then I would run out, and because I wanted them to see me surf too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did that so much. I remember trying to surf like Martin Potter, because he had this completely different than the surf criteria, the judges' criteria. He would race down the line and do one big turn.
Yes.
And so that's what I thought I needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was not getting out of heats because that's how I was surfing, and I wasn't surfing to the credit. So it was such a crazy time for me, because I was trying to figure out, well, I'm trying to surf like him. Why am I not making out of heats?
Yeah.
The judges hate me. It
Yeah.
was that kind of mentality, just bad behavior.
Yeah. Interesting, because I think your era, what you brought to the sport, Roxy coming on board at that time, an entire movement revolution kind of happened. And now it's such an incredibly different story. But I think you contributed in a big way to that. Did you ever think about that? Or did you ever think about that when you were when you had ambitions, when you were a young girl going, I want to be a great surfer? Did you have any idea that you would be as great as you are?
No, I think I honestly feel looking back, it happened so quickly. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I only discovered surfing at 15, and it's crazy how fast it all happened, to be honest with you. And not even thinking then that I was going to be where I am now, obviously, but just one piece of clothing changed my life and a lot of other people's. But it's kind of interesting that just because in some shape or form, the fact that I was uncomfortable being a girl in surfing took for one clothing item to make me feel like a superhero.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have to hold back from being ashamed of wearing a bikini and getting made fun of, or that, that sexism.
Yeah.
So then wearing a board short was like a cape. It was okay, I can actually do a huge turn and not feel embarrassed because I got swim pieces falling off.
Yeah.
You have to understand, you hold back from surfing a certain way if you feel like you're going to expose yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that board short was just and plus not to mention the fact that the guys wore them and they were my heroes. And it was just this way that I could connect with them on that level too.
Yeah.
But I think that kind of made that movement kind of so easy to transition into. Girls were just oh my gosh, I don't have to feel awkward wearing a bikini. I can wear board shorts and surf, and look, all the other girls are wearing them too. It was just this crazy thing. And I feel that was definitely meant to be. That was fate for me.
Yeah.
Because it not only did it help me feel confident in surfing, but it also built an industry.
Yep.
And it's pretty cool to have been part of that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you spend your days now?
Oh shit. What do I do now? No, well, actually, I'm in Florida. I'm actually pretty isolated. You know where I live, in that small town, Ormond, but I even live further north, where it's like there's not a lot happening where I live, so I have to literally get on a plane to go have fun. But I've been enjoying being home, to be honest with you. I moved back in 2020 from California. I was living in San Clemente, and I had just had back surgery. COVID hit, like the whole pandemic, and I was miserable, to be honest with you. Life was changing for me. I went through a divorce. I basically like left California and started over at home, like just reset button, and haven't come back since, other than just for work and stuff. But like, yeah, all of a sudden I just changed. Everything needed to change for me. I needed to start over, and finding surfing again was important to me because I checked out of that. Like I hated surfing. I was having such a hard time loving surfing. Like I was telling you about this whole relationship thing with surfing. It's just, there's ebbs and flows for me.
Yeah, for sure. I relate to that.
And I just wasn't loving it. And moving back home was huge. I paddled out at home one day, and it was so beautiful, sunny and warm. And I could actually move because my back was so messed up that cold water was just I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing for me. So I live at home. I surf not very often because it's not really my escape anymore. I find a lot of joy in other things. I love being outside, and I started doing other activities, and I'm into my home. I love interior design. I love gardening, and I love running, and I have animals. I have 3 dogs that are like my new kids now. But yeah, I just try to stay busy. Like I said, I just, had to deal with my mom and that whole situation. So that's kind of given me this new kind of freedom. And,
Interesting. The thing about like the love-hate relationship with surfing, which I definitely relate to, do you think that it is just the nature of having such a long relationship with something, or do you think it has something to do with having done it at such a high level, been shared up the beach on shoulders, and then suddenly it's like, oh, I'm paddling out into small waves, and like, what does it even mean anymore?
I mean, I went through this huge transition. This is another thing I don't think really people talk about so much, is when you're done competing and you're surfing at a certain level, and then all of a sudden your body's changing, you have issues. You can't surf at a certain level anymore. And then you start getting kind of depressed about that because you expect that when you paddle out every day. I want the best. I won't come in until I get a decent wave. That in itself has to change.
Yeah.
Because then you're miserable, right? So when you have those expectations of like surfing a certain level, and all of a sudden you have to take a step back and go, I can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Like, how can surfing be fun again? Like, to the point where you let go of certain surfboards and you go to the fun boards.
Yes.
It's like you trade it all in for a twin fin and then you're happy.
Right.
And so that's kind of what I had to do. I had to reinvent surfing for myself, to where I had to let go of that. Oh, what if someone sees me fall? Or if they don't see me surf a certain level, then they're not going to respect me anymore. Like that mentality. Yeah. That was toxic for me. And I think that being in California around all these kids, trying to catch a wave at Lowers or T Street or whatever, just blew my mind. I hated it. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was just like, this is not what surfing is for me. Yes. And so it evolved into so many different things. Like surfing is not even what I want to do every day. I had to, I don't know, it's so weird. Like I had to divorce surfing for a little bit and then kind of start over. Like, what is my ideal surf day? Like, what am I going to throw in the car? Like, it has to be fun. It cannot go back to being like that pressure on yourself to perform a certain level. Yeah. No, it's a fascinating thing. I was watching someone sort of wiggle on a like knee-high wave the other day, and I was just wondering if that's what we're supposed to do on a knee-high wave. Is that fun for you? But it was that competitive mindset. It was sort of like fit as many turns in as possible, as if there were judges watching it. Yeah. But there's that really interesting thing I think that happens, and you've experienced it firsthand. I was writing recently about Tom Curran when he went on the search, and it was sort of after he'd like been so competitive and almost been programmed to like follow what the judges want and the judges' criterion and making the surfing fit to that to win world titles, et cetera. And then sort of being like unleashed and then going on the search and riding all these like experimental boards. But there's something really
when you come up in the competitive system, as much as surfing is like a great expression of freedom, it's also the competitive thing is almost like you're not dancing your own beat. You're dancing another person's
There's
beat.
extreme ego issues in surfing,
Yeah.
right? And I think that maybe has a lot to do with the way surfing was covered, maybe from the media being in the magazines, like that whole, like, you got a cover shot or you got a photo in the mag and it just blew your ego up. Like, I feel like it was just this feeding to the ego surfing.
Yes.
And now it's worse because of social media.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's a wild thing. I think it's just a thing we go through. Like, it's like we just have to rechannel that into something else that you get that same high from,
Yeah, for sure.
if you can find out what that is.
No, that's the thing that's, I think, really tricky. And I think it's almost, this is what I mean, is like I've now witnessed, and I'm at an age, I think we're of a generation where you can see, while there's something so great about achieving one's surfing dreams, there's also like a curse of it later on in life, because it's a level of passion and fulfillment of that passion that is like, you're sometimes going, where is it?
Yeah,
like,
the light
where is
goes
it?
out a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely have gone through that. Like, now I'm just like, the surf looks good. I don't really feel like surfing.
Yeah.
But like, okay, then there's a voice in your head saying, well, shoot, you still have a job.
Yep.
You still have to go to work. You still have to perform. You still have to make sure you're ready at a moment's notice to go here, do that, or whatever,
Yeah.
which I know I am. So once you get to that place of knowing where if I have to paddle out right now, I'm fine.
Yep.
Like, I can do what I got to do.
Yeah.
But I don't have to make myself feel like I have to do that every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
To where I can't enjoy other things in life.
Yep.
So
What is the thing that fires you up most these days?
fires me up. Like, in what way?
I mean, what inspires you? Like, what is the thing? Like, if you wake up, like, when you wake up and you go, I'm stoked to be here for this.
I don't know. I think I value my friends a lot more than I used to be honest with you. Like, new relationships and new people that wander in and wander out. But like, I think that enjoying time with friends and looking forward to going on trips, but being able to plan those trips for yourself and not just for not make it a stressful thing. I think that what fires me up is knowing that I'm going to go see the girls next week in Hawaii and go surf with them and shoot in Waikiki and try to bring back this like old school Roxy vibe. Like that, that fires me up. Like this, having opportunity or being able to use some kind of creative, as far as it comes with, with creating product, like swim, and being able to do this with Roxy right now has been really fun. And that's kind of brought back a little bit of spark, being able to contribute and be valued, but also stay relevant, because it's so hard to kind of still find your place in the sport where I won't say you've been left behind, but you've actually have kind of faded out of the scene a little bit. So you kind of have to stay relevant to be important, to be marketable, or whatever, to have a job, basically.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I think that's, whatever I'm doing and whatever I get excited about has something to do with that now.
Yep.
It's all about focusing on what brings me joy, and being part of the brand in those ways really does do it for me now. And looking forward to going on trips that I know are going to be productive. It's not like, oh God, I got to go here. I'm so terrified I don't want to go here. I eliminate that right away. I don't want to have those things in my life anymore that brought me like stress. And traveling, as we know, sucks. Traveling is probably my last thing I want to do. But like, I try to make sure that when I do go anywhere nowadays, that it's like there's a silver lining. There's just an opportunity that I'm giving myself, appreciate it.
Yep. Is the silver lining the idea that you might score a few waves on that trip, or is it being with people that you love or being useful in like?
I think it's all the above.
Yeah.
Because you don't really know what you're going to run into or meet or see, or what kind of waves you're going to get. So it's that feeling, almost like bringing you back to the reason why you did it in the first place.
Yeah, sure.
When you have still that little spark there, that's a good sign that you're still doing what you love.
Yep. Do you follow any other sports?
I do. I got into baseball for a bit because I was married to someone that had their big legacy in baseball. So I got into baseball, plus Mason started playing Little League. And so I started to become the Little League mom and that whole thing with Mason. And, we started watching baseball. I started playing little golf here and there. And that was interesting. And that was like another like love-hate thing, obviously, because it's such an individual, crazy sport where you're in your head so much.
Yep.
I had to step away for a minute.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I can get into a little bit of golf and some baseball, football. Playing sports wise, I'll, not really. I mean, running is kind of my go-to right now. And, like I said, golf is too frustrating.
Yep.
But I love to watch sports because especially surfing now online. Like I stay up sometimes to watch like some heats or things like that. So that's kind of still cool, but depends on how good the waves are.
Yeah. Who's your favorite surfer right now?
Oh gosh. I mean, I have a bunch of different favorites. I love Ethan.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got that current mentality,
Ethan
right?
Ewing. Yeah.
And obviously I love like John, and I like Griffin. I like so many. Like I could just rattle on, I don't know. And Steph's like my hero, so like I can't, she's just that incredible. And I think it's kind of fun watching that little kid, Katie Simmers. And it's that's about it, I guess. I mean, I could rattle off a bunch of names, but I can never just have one.
Yeah.
Because I love a little bit of everybody. Like they all come across in different,
Yeah, it's interesting because I think surfing is almost like served up differently than it was, whereas it used to be there were no webcast of events back in the day, and then there was the magazines, and then there was films, and there was like people would have their part in a movie. Now it feels like it's just so piecemeal. It's like a wave here in the course of a day on social media. It's like, oh, we
have short memory now.
Short memory, exactly. But it's like, it's hard to hold it all in your head.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer in a way because you used to be able to savor like in a magazine for a month.
Yeah.
And that picture of what it was that you put on your wall stayed there.
Yes.
And then you always saw that. Like in Instagram now, it's a flash. Or if you even get it in your algorithms, because right now, I don't know what's on my Instagram. It's not surfing. I don't know what's going on. It's been taken over by some other crazy stuff. But it's weird, right? Now the social media thing is crazy.
Yes, it's changed everything. What a delight, Lisa.
Are you stumped now?
No, I'm not at all stumped. I was just enjoying the pause.
I know. I was like,
what else? I think these are like the things I want to talk to you about. Is there anything anything else that's interesting? You're going to axe to grind with the surf world? Or?
No, I don't. Because I don't really, I just don't have regrets. I don't have any regrets. I don't have any resentments. I just have nothing but like gratefulness and thankfulness.
Yeah.
Like I think if you asked me maybe 15 years ago, I'd been grumpy. But like now I feel like it's just like, it's been a really great experience. And like, I'm so grateful. I think there's a lot of good things happening right now in the forward motion. So that's probably why I'm in a good state right now.
Yeah.
Don't really like talk about my personal life because that's a whole nother ball game. But like pretty much everything is good.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, all this is great, Lisa.
Yeah.
Loads of fun.
It was fun.
Yeah, good to see you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you for having me.
Soundings is produced by me, Jamie Brisick, and Jonathan Shiflett. You can find it on Apple, Stitcher, and Spotify. Our theme song is Ohana by Farmer Dave and the Wizards of the West. Soundings is brought to you by the Surfer's Journal, a reader-supported publication made possible by sponsorship from Birdwell, FCS, Patagonia, Rainbow, Vans, Vissla, and Yeti. The Surfer's Journal is published bi-monthly. If you haven't done so yet, I encourage you to visit surfersjournal.com and subscribe. Thank you for listening to Soundings, and until next time.